All right, so the next thing that we're going to do is talk about eyes. So, eyes are in many, many parts. So, we're going to talk about going from the actual ball of the eye using a couple shape tools, really looking at your highlights to make them look more alive, and then even how to copy and paste them and rotate them so they're perfectly symmetrical. So, we're going to start with the eye that's completely full, and we're just going to zoom right in on that eye. Now, the first thing that you want to start with is the silhouette of the tear duct and the inside of your eye. You don't want to just do a generic oval or an almond because that'll look really funny in the end. Then, after I do the tear duct and the ball of the eye, I'm going to go through this time and do just the white of the eye. You'll notice that's a little smaller, although it does have some overlap with what we drew before. And again, make it transparent. Then the next thing you're going to do is actually do the iris, which is the colored part of the eye, and the pupil. And to do that, we're going to use a perfect circle. So we're going to go to our shapes tool. We're going to use circle. We're going to press and hold the shift key, and we're going to draw our first circle. Make sure it's transparent. Then we're going to do it again. Circle. And then you are going to place it ideally smack dab in the center of your iris, but in my case, it isn't perfectly centered, and that's just fine. All right, now we have the ball of the eye, the tear ducts of the eye, the iris, and the pupil. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to build in the eyelids. So you want these to overlap ever so slightly. And you're going to really go around the contour of your eyelid. And again, in the corners, if you want to break it up a little bit, sometimes that helps it look a little bit more natural. Again, make it transparent because you are probably going to be like me where you have at least two different values in just the eyelid. So then you go through, you're going to add that second value, make it transparent. Then you're going to even add the bottom eyelid, which just kind of goes over and helps smooth everything out. Now you'll notice I haven't drawn eyelashes yet. That is on purpose. So I'm going to start by doing my furthest back object, which is the tear ducts. And then I'm going to choose a color for my tear ducts. And then again, I'm going to copy, and then I'm going to Control V to paste it. The next thing I'm going to do, and luckily we have another eye to pull from, is do the eye color. And you'll notice that eyes are not really white when you do this project. They usually are a gray because of shadows, because of blood vessels. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to really look at the iris color. And I'm going to do a gradient in my eye color. So I'm going to click Gradient, Custom, and on my highlight side, I'm going to do the color I just picked. And on my shadow side, I'm going to do a little bit of greenish brown. So I'm just going to tweak around with that. And I'm going to press OK. And you know what? The angle of that isn't quite what I want. So if I click Custom and play with the angle a little bit more. Maybe I don't want it linear. Maybe I want it radial. And maybe I want it to be in the top right. Yeah, that looks a little bit better. And then this, easy peasy, make it black. Already starting to look like a really three-dimensional eye. The next thing I'm going to choose is my eyelid color. And you know what? Instead of doing that, I think I'm actually going to pick an eyelid color I've already gone with before. Maybe a little darker. Like so. And then what I'm going to do is choose all my pieces, make sure that they have transparent lines, and then I'm going to group them. So there's my first eyeball, but you'll notice it's missing something. It's missing the highlights of the eye. It's missing a little bit of the darker brown shadow. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put in that little darker brown shadow. I'm going to choose a color that I already pre-made. And I'm going to slide it up here, and then I'm going to tweak it so it lines up a little bit better with what I've already drawn. I'm also going to pull my eyelid down a little bit. And this is when ungrouping comes in handy, because I actually need this eyelid to go in front of my highlight. And I need my pupil to come to the front. There, that looks a little bit better. Then the next thing I'm going to do is add my highlights, and those are just going to be little white ovals. So I see I have 4 of them. So I'm going to have 1, and then Control C, Control V. You can just make the other ones. See them. Adds a little bit more life to the eye. Now the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add my eyelashes. And the trick for eyelashes is to not draw all of them. You just want to draw the outliers. So you start with the bottom of the lid. And then I'm going to do the really long ones on the edges, some medium ones in the middle, and then keep them pretty shallow. And then what I think I might do is just pull out a couple of them. On the bottom. Then all right, then we're going to do what we did before. We're going to press Shift, select all of these. I'm going to fill them in with my darkest brown. Oh, and I forgot to group them first. Happens to the best of us. Remember, select them all. Control-Alt-G. Make sure you get rid of that highlight, or rid of that outline. And we're going to slide it into place over top the eye. And if you're having trouble lining things up, place everything back where it was on top of the eye. So here we have our first lid. There we have our shadow of our lid. Eyeball. The pink of the eye. Those I'll probably group and make sure they all come over together. And then the bottom lid of the eye. I just made those transparent just to see. All right, now that I think that I have my eye pretty much how I want it, I'm going to fit the eye to the space. I'm going to drag around it, deselect the photo, group the eyeball, and slide it into place on my portrait. Now, this is where you might discover you don't like having something, like the under eye. I think that's necessary though. Maybe you'll see that maybe one of your eyelids isn't quite lined up correctly, so you have to go back in and adjust that. Maybe when you grouped it. All right. And then once you're pretty sure you have your eye how you want, what you can also do is add a gradient to the eyeball. So maybe it's just too dark the whole way. Maybe the highlight isn't the right place. That gives it a little bit more realism as well.